Thanks, Shira.
So today we're going to be talking about play and the importance of play, not just as children, but as adults also. Because a lot of times, like, at least for me, when I hear of play, I think of like little kids, like play group, maybe elementary school, maybe after school. But like, I never think like an adult actually is going to play.
I think that's why there's not so much play as an adult, because people tend to think it's like a childish thing. Right. And the reason that I'm excited that we're talking about it today is to explain that it's not. The terminology of play, people think it's childlike.
Right. Like it has that association.
Not, and it's important to do it now in adulthood. And actually, the first time I really heard about the concepts of play was when I was learning from Brene Brown about like wholehearted living. And she says one of the components to a wholehearted living is play.
Yes.
So 1, it's time spent without purpose. 2, it's you're fully engrossed in it. Mm-hmm. Like, losing track of time.
Yes.
And 3, you're losing self-consciousness.
But yeah, that is a great definition, because like I think like, with play, like if you're bored while you're doing it, it's probably not play. And it's more important of like what it is that you're doing, rather than saying like this is considered play and that is not considered play. Like it's so specific to the person, because for one person, what is playful? For another person, it could be extremely, extremely boring, and they just can't wait for it to be over.
Right. I can get engrossed in a book. Mm-hmm. And someone else could be like, whoa, this is such a chore to read this book. I want to read it because everybody's reading it. So I want to know, I want to know what's going on in the world. But for me, how many pages are left? Yeah. So that's not a form of play. While for me, because I love reading, I'll lose time. I'll be fully engrossed. I'll lose a part of myself in the book. Mm-hmm. And then before I know it, it's 6 hours has passed and I finished the book.
Yeah.
So for me, reading is a form of play. For someone else, it might not be.
Right.
And I love what you found about the different personalities of play.
Yeah.
Can we go into that for a moment so people can like find and be like, yes, that's me. And then know to engage in those kind of activities more.
Yeah. That was like, I just want to add to like what you were saying before. Like I used to find that like sometimes like if I was with a friend and watching a movie, I would sit there and I would be so bored, but I would assume that like movies are supposed to be interesting. So like, why am I so bored watching this movie? And then like I stopped and I said, no. Like there's different styles of movies. Like I don't have to be okay with every single one. And then I'm able to like shuffle through to see which one works for me. And so like play is so unique. Yeah. But yes, like part of the research of like what we were doing for this, and it's like my favorite part of the podcast, by the way, is that I get to like delve into like all the different websites and research on what is out there for the topic. Then I found this idea that there's so many personalities and styles of playing that people have. So like the first one that came up is the collector.
Okay.
So the collector is somebody who's like looking at different objects, collects them for themselves. Like I think about like those that like collect stamps, or they collect like baseball cards, or even like coins.
My son collects seashells at the beach and then is like so busy looking at it when we get home.
By the way, when I went on a trip this August, I went to the beach and there were such gorgeous like rocks. I started just like collecting the rocks and I brought them home like to my husband. He's like, what is this? I'm like, can't you see like there's such beautiful rocks? And he was like, yeah, they're pretty. But like, I didn't know you like collecting things. I was like, I don't, but like now I do, because I like this item.
I think it's interesting because you're going to see from all these different personalities that at least for myself, I see myself a little bit in all of them.
Yeah.
Or not in all of them. I don't find myself a collector, but a little bit in most of them. Mm-hmm. But then there's one that I'm like, yes, this is me. So that's why there's not just one style of play that is fit for you. There's many styles of play that you could be good at and that you could enjoy. And it's important to know that, you can do a little bit of this, you can do a little bit of that. And it's important to engage in all different types as well.
Right. Like, I would never think that collecting rocks is a fun thing.
Right.
And like now when I learned about this, I'm like, oh, right, that was fun for me. Like it's almost like I put words to what it was that I was experienced in the past.
Yeah.
And so the next one is the competitor. This one I cannot really relate to, but I think many people could, in terms of like organized sports, and like it's only fun if I'm competing against somebody and I'm going to win.
Right.
So it's like we're only playing the game to win, for the outcome. It's like you play chess, who won? Or you play sports, who won the baseball game? Or like when you're watching somebody else play the sports, you want to find out like who won.
Right. I think it's important to differentiate here that not all competition is play. If for you, it's play. Some people are into competitive sports, but that doesn't make it a play for them.
Right. It's only if at the end you get that thrill of I won, or even through losing, right? But you still enjoyed the playing because you knew that there was the stakes of I could potentially win or lose.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like you see like all these competitions, even in like bake-offs of like whose product is going to be the best, whose dish is going to be better. And so like that competition is what motivates people, and it excites them.
Yeah.
And they're not like, if there's no competition aspect, like what's the point of playing the game?
Yeah.
Not just playing the play.
Recently at my gym, there was like this like partner workout that they were making you do. And the person that I was partnered with was running so fast. And not that it was a competition because we were partners, but like I kind of felt pressured. So like it felt competitive. Like, oh, if that person's running so fast and I'm their partner, that means I need to be running fast also.
Mhm.
And so I ran the fastest I ever ran. And it was so much fun. Like I got this, like,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I have to beat her, you know,
Mhm.
even though it wasn't a competition, but I felt the competitive me come out and I actually had a lot of fun because of it.
Yeah. There's something about having another person there that then just makes it more exciting because you know, like either you're going to win or not.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Creator and the artist. Like this is the person who always wants to build something, to make something, to draw something, to paint something. It's interesting because it's also somebody who's like a mechanic who likes fixing things. Like they'll take an item, break it apart
Right.
just to put it back together. Like they're understanding like what makes an item be. They love fixing things in houses. They might be into construction, or they might, you know, like Lego where you can build it, or Magnetiles.
Right.
So also like those all DIY paint things, or the
Right.
DIY like anything like the kits. They would love something like that because all you're doing is you're building something in the form of creating. Like the end product is what's important to them. That's the fun.
Yeah, I think that creativity, I mean, in its own self is something important. But then for certain people, like that could be the real source of play. Like for me to go into a paint night is not fun.
Mhm.
You know, that's like stress. But there's other sources of creativity though that could be fun, like
Mhm.
making up a dance or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, you know, creating a song, right? Writing the lyrics to a song.
Right.
Like it's so funny. I didn't know that you don't like painting. You wouldn't like a paint night?
I guess I just feel really stressed because like mine always looks really
Mm-hmm.
bad. And then and I have never enjoyed it when I've gone,
Right.
you know?
It's funny because in a paint night, I feel the competition because they compare everybody's
Right.
afterwards.
So maybe that's what
and
it
they like
is.
show
And
it
I'm so
off.
bad at painting, but like maybe if you give me like a wall and say like, here's a huge bucket of pink paint, like paint the wall, like that could be fun.
Right.
But like a paint night in itself is like, I don't like it. No.
Did you ever do that in camp where like everyone just like wears their garbage clothing and then you just like throw paint everywhere around?
No, but when we lived in Brooklyn and we were moving, my parents decided for fun, like, because anyways, they were repainting the whole house. They got us all our own wall. We had like a big basement. Everyone
Mhm.
got their own wall and like a bucket of paint. We were able to paint the wall. And that was really fun. I remember that still like years
Yeah.
later as a child. And then my parents said they didn't realize what a big mistake was because we had to repaint the basement like 100 times to actually get out like the black bats that my brothers painted on it.
Wow.
So it wasn't the smartest move on their part, but as a child, I like have very fond memories of that.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. I remember when we moved into our first apartment, like we didn't want to hire somebody to do the paint and we had the free time. So we just like bought those rollers
Right.
and like we were going up and down with the paints. And I didn't realize like how strong you have to be in order to paint.
It's
Because like you're
hold
doing the
that
same.
roller also.
Yeah, you're doing the same movement
Right.
up
It's
and
like your
down. And
arm
like
is
with each
hurting.
afterwards I was so exhausted. Like I didn't realize how tiring it would be. But it was also like a lot of fun. Like just doing that.
So within creativity, I guess there's different things that could be play for me while other things not.
Right. Like other things can just be stressful. And the next one is the director. They're the ones that are always organizing things. They're the responsible ones. They're the ones that are planning parties. They're the ones that are directing movies or directing any play. They're the head of it and they love just organizing. They love things being neat and clean. Like that's what brings them the most pleasure. There's nothing better than like cleaning up a table for them.
Right.
Like there's nothing better than just like, you know, planning a trip. That is their ultimate fun. Even though like it can seem like a job or stress, like to them, it's just really exciting.
Cool.
Yeah, I can see like travel agents really liking this, or like those that are always like hosting parties and like, you know, creating like tablescapes and all those pretty things.
Like party planners. I like organizing things and planning things. Like I feel like I was always the one in high school like planning the school trip or whatever. So like I do relate to it. I just feel like as I got older, that wasn't as fun for me anymore. Like it was something that I enjoyed when I was younger. And now I'm just like, I have too many responsibilities and it feels like a responsibility.
Yeah.
So even it used to be play to me, which is interesting when I didn't have so much responsibilities and that was a fun thing to do. And now it just feels like another burden.
Right. I find that like sometimes when I'm bored, like my go-to is like to just search like different locations and like I'm not sure if this like falls into this one or if it falls under the next one because it might be like the Explorer, which is next. But I just like I love exploring like different areas, like watching YouTube clips of like different locations and then like planning itineraries. Like that to me is exciting. But I don't know if it's like the planning that's fun or if it's just like the fantasy of like, oh, maybe one day I'll come here. You know, so I don't know what that falls under, but like maybe that's like the semblance of my connection to the director.
Come here.
Yeah. So back to the Explorer. The Explorer is somebody who wants to physically see new places or to emotionally explore themselves. So it's all about exploring something new. They need newness. Like they want something fresh every single day. They can't just have continuation. They have to see something new in their life. And so they're constantly traveling. They're constantly like changing things up. Like they might be changing their clothing. They might be changing like their house around. Like these are the people who like they have new furniture so often because like it's just boring to keep things consistent. But but also like emotionally, they might be constantly exploring themselves. Like, and I think like maybe like social workers could connect to this because like there's a certain depth that they're never content with.
Right.
It's not just like I know myself as I know today. Like I need to explore myself deeper. I need to explore other people deeper. Like I need to know more.
Right. And I do find like when I go to therapy training that it's fun.
Yeah.
You know, I do find therapy fun.
Yeah.
Like getting to know myself and exploring that.
Right. Or like doing like a therapy-based activity, you know, doing like listening to a lecture or even like listening to podcasts, right? That are like anything self-help,
Exactly.
anything that's self-discovery based, like that's fun, which a lot of people find that stressful though. Because it's like, why am I thinking about myself? Like, why do I have to think so much? Like, just let it be as it is. Yeah. No, so the Joker is someone who's always like clowning around. And so like on the one hand, like it's not really an activity necessarily because they just need to be with another person. They need to be with another person who they can joke with or who they can make fun with, or they can actually write it down or write comedy scripts. But this is someone who is like always looking for like the comedy in life and the comedy in situations. And there's like lots of laughing in that sense. But like this doesn't require like a lot of like activities or like supplies. Like it can just like be the two of them together, but you need another person.
Right. So the next one is my favorite one. Okay. It's the kinesthetic one. And I just like, when I read this, I'm like, each one I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm a little bit of this. Oh yeah. And then I was like, no, this is me. It's like always on the move. Like as long as something has movement, and I just literally feel like that's me. Like I tell my husband on a Sunday, like, I don't care what we do, but I just want to be moving. Like I love swimming and I love skiing and I love playing tennis. And I just like, if we're doing something with the kids, as long as we're walking, like put them in the stroller, go on a walk through Bear Mountain. Like as long as we're moving, I'm content. Like it keeps my brain is moving if I'm moving, and it just feels like fun and good, healthy for me.
Yeah. It's funny because like to me it sounds like sensory input also. Like there has to be like a lot of like involvement in your body in order for it to be like exciting. Like and also like with that, like I kind of feel like it's like within our bodies, it's like chemical based because like when we do move, like we get that dopamine.
Right, exactly.
Shock, and it, like that in itself like feels like so much fun and feels amazing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm looking for that.
Like it can be just like so much fun. Like on Shabbos afternoon, like it is so important for me to just like get out. Like
to
not to just like sit around like after the meal. It's like go out, like even if it's like to go nowhere, just to like look at the trees or to like have fresh air, like to just move. Like you can't be in the same place.
Exactly. This past Shabbos, it was like freezing. So my friends were like, oh, we're not leaving our house. Like I went out Friday night and Shabbos day. Like I can't admit, like not leaving my house seems like horrible. And for them, it was like leaving their house seems horrible.
Right.
And I was like, no way am I staying inside the whole day. Even if it's freezing, we'll bundle up and we'll go visit someone.
Right. One of my favorite things is that shul from my house is a half hour away. So I know on Shabbos, like guaranteed, like I will get a walk each way a half hour. Like, and that just like makes my day because it's like you get up, like you go out, like, and you come back and it's also a beautiful walk. Like, so that way, like I'm moving my body. Like there's some input. Yeah.
My favorite part of vacation is when I'm in Miami and I put the kids in the stroller in the morning and I walk 20 minutes to get breakfast. It's like my favorite part of the day. It's like, why? You can Uber eat it, take an Uber there. You don't even need to go get the breakfast. Like, I don't even need the food. I have food in my hotel. No.
Yeah.
Put the kids in the stroller, walk by the broad walk, get the food and walk back. It's like my favorite thing.
Right. It's like making me think like when I think back to like, you know, vacations or trips, like what was my favorite part? Like my favorite part is when we're moving. Like it is like, you know, all those like, you know, walking along the beach, like with just music, like that is my favorite. So like now I'm doubting whether I'm the explorer, whether I'm the kinesthetic.
I mean, you can be both.
Yeah, that's true. It's not all or nothing.
You don't have to pick one. When I saw this one, I was like, oh, this is me. But I also find myself in a little bit of other ones as well.
Right.
Like a little bit in the competition one and a little bit in the explorer one.
Or it's sort of like everybody wants to know like what letter combination they are.
Exactly.
And like you can be everything, just like what's your dominant one, like that's what's going to come first. And it's like that mixture.
Exactly. And this is just important to know because we don't have that much time as we're getting older for play.
No.
Like we don't. We're working, we're taking care of children. Like it's so much responsibility. So like if you only have a limited amount of time, it's important to actually look at what are you going to enjoy the most? Are you going to enjoy reading a book or are you going to enjoy going for a run?
Yeah.
Which one is the thing that's going to give you that sense of play that you need? And it's so hard to make the space for that. But at the same time, if we don't make the space for it, we get resentful. We have pent up rage, anger, and there's a lot, even depression. Like there's a lot of symptoms that could happen if we don't make the space for play. And I feel like it's the last thing that gets put out. Like exercise comes first. And even self-care comes before. And self-care is important, but play could be a form of self-care. Yeah. Which people are like, oh, for self-care, I'm going to take a nap. But play could really be a sense of self-care, you know, go out with a friend and play a game of ball. Like these are really important components. And I feel like because we have this like childish connotation to it. We don't pay attention to the fact that play is crucial to wholehearted living.
Ultimately, it's up to us to actually plan it and to make sure it happens. Like this play is not something that automatically comes into our life. As a kid, yes, there's like, assigned recess. Like as adults, we don't have any recess. Like we're lucky if we get a lunch break, like, and don't actually like take a breath, take a walk or
also like there's so many things that we need to be doing in our free time. Like lunch break, people need to eat lunch or like run to an appointment or make a phone call. So, and then in the evening, people want to do exercise or need to catch up on housework. So like play, I feel like becomes like, we're telling people like, oh, you need to do self-care. And now we're adding another component, even though self-care could be the same, could be play as well.
But the play is going to allow you to then have the energy to do what you need to do. Like when you're finding yourself bored at work or when you're finding yourself just like dull with life and bored with life, it's probably because you aren't either self-caring or because you aren't being playful enough. Like you can't disconnect from that part of yourself. Like you need to connect to the inner child of you, but the inner playfulness of you also. And, just to like transition this a little bit to like couples. And I know we didn't finish, like we still have one more type on the list. We'll get back to that. But just to transition to couples, because a lot of times, like I think like people think the most important thing in marriage is communication, right? Communication and connection. How do we do that? Through talking. And so a lot of times, like people will push for deep conversations. They'll push for intense conversations. Like we have to talk about this problem and we have to spend this time, like, talking about planning our future together. And what they miss is that playfulness, and the relationship becomes so intense because they're so heavily focused on fixing this and discussing that and dissecting this. And most of the times they need to talk about things that aren't necessarily fixable. And obviously, yes, sometimes you could fix things through those conversations and you could connect through conversations, but like don't only give yourself one way of connecting. Like play is such an opportunity to connect and build memories. Like play a game with your spouse, like, or like a board game, or if you don't like board games, like go out and do an activity together. Like some of the best memories in my marriage is when I look back on all the activities that we do together. I don't remember the conversations. I remember the activities and the laughing and the fun times that I've had together. And that's what's going to build your relationship too. And I think like couples really lose this. And
yeah, because there's like so little time, right? So you're thinking like, okay, I'm going to have date night. Finally, I'm going on date night with my husband. Okay, let's go out to eat. And then it's after a long day of work or taking care of the kids and you're both so tired. I mean, I can relate to this. And you're just like, okay, when's the food coming here? And you're eating the food and either you're having deep conversation or not because you're both tired. And it like those kind of date nights were just not working for me. And I kind of switched to that activity also. And like suddenly after the activity, I was like, wait, let's go get food now. Like I had all this extra adrenaline because we went roller skating or something else that we did that was like, okay, now we can sit and we can talk. I feel like play opens up space within yourself to then have good conversation.
Yeah, exactly. It forms a connection and a bond. And it's not, the only way to connect and bond is not through talking. Like talking doesn't work for everybody. Like some people just can't talk. It's not for them. They don't know what to say. Like sometimes men, they don't know what to say. Sometimes women don't know what to say.
Some are quieter and they don't want to talk after a long day.
Yeah.
They're tired. So like going to do something fun, going to play mini golf, going to a movie, like that could be a different way of connecting.
Yeah.
And I feel like we talked about this. This is like feeling familiar right now.
Really? People to like say like, okay, make sure to ask your spouse, like, how was your day? Make sure to ask your kids, how was your day? Most of the time though, people are like good and they don't necessarily want to talk to it. If they do, they'll just talk without asking. And so like in those cases, you need other opportunities of ways of connecting. Yeah. So make sure that you're playing.
Exactly. So what's the last one?
So the last one is the storyteller. So this is somebody who's always using their imagination. Like this is somebody who, might be, I cannot relate to this. The storyteller is somebody who's always using their imagination. They're always like planning things. Like these are like what I would assume is like someone who's like really creative. They can make up a story. They love telling a story. Like they get all dramatic and theatric with the story.
And who's giving like speeches and trainings and comedy or like, one of those kind of people that like the crowd and likes to say over a story.
Yeah, you see that sometimes, like let's say, like with like fathers, like at Shabbos tables, who like they love to like they own the table in a sense of like they have a story and they just like they love an audience listening to them, and they get like all into it. Like it's not just like okay, this happened. Like they build it up and build it up and build it up, and I can see why that can be really exciting. Exciting to listen to it, but also exciting to tell it because it's like the drama. I wonder if like theater also falls into this, like acting.
Maybe, acting exactly.
Yeah, so probably like storyteller comes under that as well.
People who read poetry, maybe.
Yeah.
Or like read out loud poetry, not just like reading it to themselves.
Exactly. One of my friends has been trying to organize this for a really long time, and finally she did it. And I'm so thankful that she did because, of course, I wasn't in the mood when it happened. But then afterwards, I'm like, I'm so happy. Like, I really enjoyed it. I think like that's the thing with fun is like beforehand, we're like, oh, I'm too tired for this.
Right, because it
like,
takes energy that we don't actually have.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have to like make the choice not based on our mood. We have to make the choice based on what we know we're going to feel afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, the night before skiing or the morning of skiing, I always say I don't want to go.
Yeah.
I was like, such a schlep and this, and I'm so tired. And then I'm always so happy that I went.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because like in the moment, like, we can't really trust our emotions in that moment.
Well, there's an aspect of having to push yourself to play.
Exactly. Yeah. There. Well, back to those, back to those episodes, like Push Yourself Part 1 and 2, listen to that as a prerequisite to this. I guess like a little shout out to the other episodes. But like, so my friend, like she created last night this book club, and I think like from the outside, like you could think like a book club, like is this like literature class? Like, she assigned a book, everybody had to read it at a specific time. She even gave an audiobook for those that didn't want to read. And it was a long book. And afterwards, like, in the book club, she's sitting and like asking questions to everybody, and you had to like prepare an assigned like chapter to you. And like, what do you think about that? And like, it sort of felt like school, but like, it was so much fun. Like afterwards, I was like, wow, like I love hearing other people's thoughts about this. Like that's such an interesting way of like, thinking. And at the end, I felt like rejuvenated.
Sounds fun.
Yeah. So it's like, but, I understand that, like, for me, that was fun. For someone else, it might feel like a homework assignment.
Right.
And so we all have to connect our fun.
Right. So it's important to, I think, make space for play, and also to find out what play is for you.
Yeah, exactly. And also to respect other people's form of plays, and not to like look down at it, like, because like maybe your spouse needs a specific type of play and it's not your style, but just because it's not your style, it doesn't mean you should.
Right. Exactly. And I think that a lot of reason people don't go for play anymore is because of shame that was connected to play. So let's say you were a little kid and you were painting and someone made fun of your paint. So now you might say, okay, this is not for me. There's a lot of shame associated to creativity, and people might, but then really that's something that you would really enjoy doing.
I think there's also like a lot of guilt with play, because it kind of feels like, oh, maybe this is a waste of time.
Right.
It's like, why would I play? Like, I work full time, and then I come home with family, like doing responsibilities, and then you go to sleep. Like, where's there any time in the day to play?
Also, there's totally shame to like say that you did something so fun, because it seems so like selfish, and like, it's, today everyone's all into like, oh, I work so much, I'm so burnt out, I have no time for myself, right? So to say like, wait, I actually went and skied the whole day, it's like, wait, what did you do with your children? And I'm talking from experience right now, what people say to me when I say that. I'm like, and there's like a lot of shame, like, how could you take a whole day to yourself to do something so fun?
Right. But you know what? Like, your kids were entertained, and you're entitled to fun also. Like, adulthood doesn't have to be so like stiff and so rigid. Like, it could be fun too. There's nothing wrong. Like, it's not like an Avera to have fun.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be obviously an extreme example of doing something the whole day. It could be something for 30 minutes or an hour, but it is something that, is part of living a wholehearted life.
Yeah. I think back to like all my years of like being camp counselors and like working with kids. Like, that's probably when I laughed the most, is the kids have like something like they bring it out in you, like just because like they could be so much in the moment. Like, I feel sometimes like with adults, like they lose that edge of like everything becomes like just more serious and real, which makes sense because there's responsibilities and you want to have that. But like, we always need to connect back to that child, like that could just like laugh over the dumbest thing, that can just like, look at something with such awe. Like, and I think like that's the beauty of like a kid, where they can just like bring that out for us. Like, I remember like when I was a counselor, like I used to love like doing the baking with the groups, and then I would love like, they would have like swimming next, I would go swimming with them. Like, they would then like, they would be painting and go and paint with them. Like, I wasn't just like one of those counselors who like, stood at the side with her phone, like, or talk to the counselors, like, like in little counselor club. I would actually like go and do these activities, and I'm like, this is so much fun, like being with them. Like, those like jumping places, like the trampoline parks, like I would go take my shoes off and go down the slides with them. Like, I kind of like love all these things. Like, and I think it's so, so important for us as adults to like go into the moonwalk when we're adults. Like, there's no reason why only the kids are there. Like, you can do it too. And we each need to find our own style of play, so that way when we do it, we're not bored, and also it gives us the fulfillment that we're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. So go have fun. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.